Okay, let's begin. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachariणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So welcome everyone to our weekly program, and we are trying to go through the Gita. Right now we are on 5th chapter, and we completed the first section from shloka number 1 to shloka number 16, and we were discussing about the lotus devotee last time, and before that we were discussing how this 5th chapter started. Third chapter was Karma Yoga, fourth chapter was Jnana Yoga, and a combination of this, is it possible, was asked by Arjun in the first shloka of the 5th chapter, and Krishna gave a very clear answer. So synopsis of last class, advantage of Sankhya Yoga, detachment becomes easy. Does anybody remember any example that we discussed last time?
Prabhuji, lotus leaf.
Lotus leaf later. Lotus leaf came later.
Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Detachment is detachment to Krishna,
Yeah,
and shortcut to attach to Lord Krishna. We have this. Then
yeah,
come
but
some
no, advantage of Sankhya Yoga. Why is Sankhya Yoga important? We discussed a few examples. Does anybody make notes of the class? You can refer to your notes.
It's about visiting Delhi
Visiting Delhi.
as a
Okay.
spirit.
Okay. Does anybody remember?
Stories, the example noted was one was professional gardener and the boy watering.
That also comes later. That comes later. I'll give you this example, and all of you will
Hare
say, "Oh,
Krishna, Hare
yes."
Before
Krishna,
that was
Prabhuji.
cake was
Prabhuji,
the
you mentioned about an
cake
Prabhuji,
and
you mentioned about the
three dates
excellent
of the
cake
cake.
Who is
to
speaking
get
this?
all the ingredients together, and
Yes,
all the ingredients have been processed together.
yes. Now the point is, I'm sorry if you missed it, but the point is the whole thing assembled together looks very beautiful. But when you describe the cake in terms of the ingredients, the powder, the oil, and all that, it no longer looks beautiful. Similarly, all that we see with our eyes, it appears very beautiful, but what are the constituents? There is some fire, there is some water, there is some earth, and so on. So if somebody shows you a beautiful person, and then somebody also tells you what is there inside, I showed you a picture of blood, bones, and all that. Actually, it looks very ghastly. So all the beauty is very external. Actually, this body is not a very attractive body. Just 2 mm, just 2 millimeters below this body is all blood, marrow, bones, and all that. And I gave an example of how this devotee, he was working in a factory and then something fell on him and his knee broke off and all the, very ghastly side he saw. So all of you forgot that, not an issue. Okay, work in devotion versus inaction based on knowledge. Same result is obtained by both processes. But any example? So here that example comes that, there is this small boy who's also watering the garden, and then there is somebody who's also watering the garden, but that person may be really very expert, but then both achieve the same result. Both achieve the same result. Lotus devotee of Lotus Lord. We discussed about the lotus, the special qualities of a lotus. Subhashi, you need to mute yourself. Then why does
Yes.
such a devotee act? This devotee, who is a lotus devotee, who has nothing to do with this material world, why does this devotee act? Nothing to do, no profit, no loss, no attachment, no detachment. Why does he act? Anybody remembers?
Prabhuji, you said about Niskam Karma.
No, we spoke about he acts only for self purification. Keval Atma Shuddhaye. There was a shloka like that. So this devotee, there was a shloka where it was mentioned this devotee hears, speaks, closes his eyes, opens his eyes, hears, smells, etc. etc. So many activities were given. And then it was mentioned, but why does he act? Keval Atma Shuddhaye. He is doing it just because of his self purification. He wants to purify himself more and more, more and more. And we spoke about 18 karat gold, 22 karat gold, and 24 karat gold. There is no end to the purity level of gold. 18 karat gold is also gold, but 24 karat gold is more pure. Similarly, any devotee of the Lord, he never claims that he is the purest of all. He says, no, 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 I still have so much impurities and I need to purify myself. So every devotee is very busy, busy, busy. But why is he busy? He is not busy for accumulating followers. He is not busy for getting some name and fame. Although people usually, when they are busy in this world, they are doing their activities primarily for such purposes. And devotees are also very busy. But they are busy not for accumulating anything. They are busy for purifying themselves. They acknowledge, they admit that yes, there is so much dirt inside my heart, and the only way to purify it is to serve Krishna. So why does this such devotee act? It is only for self purification. Okay, does anybody remember this slide? So this is all from my slides. None of what I am speaking is what I have not discussed in last class. Okay. Okay, difference between yukta and ayukta. Anybody remembers?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, yes.
This is the example of if when I'm, if I'm offering, if I'm attached to God, okay, or if I'm devoted to God, I will achieve peace, I will achieve liberation. But
Very
if I'm
good.
not in union with divine, then I automatically am, I'm in bondage or I'm entangled.
Yeah, very good. This is that famous line that Dr. Veena Mataji spoke. She said, N-O-G-O-D, no God, no peace, no God, no peace. So when you are yukta, when you are connected to God, you have peace in your life. And when you are not connected to God, then there are just so many entanglements. Sometimes you see a bee getting caught in a spider's web, and that bee is very active. The bee is traveling on an average, they say around 8 kilometers to 10 kilometers. An average honeybee, a small little honeybee, travels every day. That much energy it has. But if the same very active honeybee is caught up in a spider's web, can't do much. So similarly, all of us are very powerful. All of us as living entities have a lot of potential in us, but we got caught in Maya's web, and that's why we are just helpless here. Okay, anybody remembers about this? The roles of spirit, soul, material nature, and the Supreme Lord. I can show you last time's slideshow, PPT show, and you will be surprised that all this was discussed last time. Anyways, the last point was what will truly help us. There was this picture that I showed of a sunrise, and there were 2 or 3 mountains in between. And then I was saying how the land which is very closest to the sunrise is all lit up. And then there was another land between the 2 mountains, it was half lit up. And then there was the land that was closest to the camera from where this picture was being taken, and that land was completely dark. But as the sun rises slowly, then all the land, whether it is at that end or this end, will slowly get lit up. And that's why Krishna, in that shloka, 16th shloka of this chapter, spoke about that transcendental knowledge is like the sun, Aditya. Just like the Aditya rises and lights up the world, similarly, the spiritual knowledge, the more you allow the sun of spiritual knowledge to rise in your heart, the more it lights up your heart. So, first chapter, there was some light, second chapter, more light, third chapter, more light, and now we are in fifth chapter. So, I hope there is little bit more light. Okay, 5.17, the first shloka. for discussion today. Tad buddhayastadanas tannishthastadparayanaha gachanti apunaravrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme. So if you look at the shloka, then you say Tad Buddhayas. Tad Buddha. Tad means the Supreme Lord. Just like we say Om Tat Sat. Om is auspicious invocation. And Tat means that, the Supreme Lord. Tat Sat. Sat means only He is eternal. Om Tat Sat. So that Tat Buddhayas. If you offer your intelligence to Him, Tad Atmanas, and you offer your mind to Him, Tan Nishthas, and you offer your faith to Him, and Tat Parayana, if you are surrendered to Him, Gachanti Apunaravrittim, Jnana Nirdhuta Kalmasha, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So the topic for today was utilizing knowledge to rise higher. There is so much knowledge, but are we utilizing that knowledge for rising higher? There's so many statistics and so much information that comes our way through emails and WhatsApp, and so many times we just keep forwarding all those messages. Very few times do we actually meditate on the subject of that message. So that is what is mentioned here. Fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge. Just today afternoon we had a program, and in that program I was discussing about how so many times if something goes wrong in our lives, then we put the blame on others. And then I was giving this example that there are two responsibilities a person has when something goes wrong in his life. First is the responsibility to find out the cause. What happened? What exactly led to the mess in my life? And that's a responsibility which we have to undertake. If there is a mess in our life, if there are problems in our life, and if we don't understand the reason for it, there is a good chance that it might repeat. So we will solve it this time, but then again it repeats. Again we solve it, then again it repeats. And then this is not very good. So first responsibility when there is a mess, there is a chaos in our life, is to find out the cause. There could be two causes. One is self or anything else. There are two causes. One is मेरी वजह से हुआ है प्रभु जी ये सब. Or you could say it is because of this person, it is because of this situation, it is something beyond me, it is COVID. So COVID किसी को पता ही नहीं था आने वाला है, and that's why there are so many problems in my life, and so on. So if it is you, then you better deal with it at the root level. You better solve that problem and prevent it from repeating again. If you find out, no, it's not me, it is because of something beyond me, then what can you do? Because you can't change people, you can't change situations, and you can't change COVID-19 virus also. All you can do is patiently undergo treatment, whatever is possible. You undergo treatment and
कि मुझे ये आपका ये सर्कल है ना, सर्कल वो बीच में आ रहा है.
which circle? I don't see any circle. Okay.
Prabhuji, it is because of the light which is falling on your specs.
Oh, really? Okay. So you want me to switch off that light? This is good. Okay, let's go ahead. So, yeah, so we were talking about two kinds of responsibilities when there is a chaos in our life. One responsibility is that to find out the cause of this trouble, to find out the cause of the chaos in our life. And then the second responsibility is after finding out the cause, then we actually solve it. We actually do something about it. So both responsibilities are very important. And the first responsibility just helps us to find the cause. What about the second responsibility? Now the first responsibility has two options, as I mentioned. Myself is the cause of this problem, somebody else is the cause of this problem, and then we have to deal accordingly. But the second responsibility, which is to solve the problem, which is to actually deal with the chaos in our life, you cannot delegate it to anybody. You cannot hand it over to anybody, and you cannot find out any other situation, anything for that matter, person, situation, condition, whatever it is. But that is something to own up. And then we were saying how it's very important to own up the responsibility, if not of uh, accepting that I am the cause of this mess, at least we have to own up the responsibility that I may or may not be the cause of this mess, but I definitely am going to be the cause of cleaning up this mess. Imagine somebody throws something into your home through the window, and then it's garbage basically which has fallen into your home, and then you are thinking who did it and all that. That's okay, you can find it out, and there could be different reasons for that, but finally, you know what, the garbage is smelling, the garbage is toxic, the garbage is unhygienic, and the garbage is unclean, and it is right now lying in your home. So while you spend time finding out who threw the garbage into your home and all that, but now the interesting point is finally the garbage is in your home, and if you allow it to remain in your home when you're finding time to clean up the mess, it is going to cause a lot of, you know, diseases, uncleanliness, and a bad odor in your home and all that. So two responsibilities. One is to find out the cause. Second is to clean up the mess. But many times we like to put the blame on somebody else. And it gives us some kind of freedom from accepting responsibility. And in this way, with a lot of misgivings in our life, we blame it on somebody, we have a grudge against somebody, or this is the person who caused trouble in my life. But the net result is because you're causing a full heavy load on your head, some grudge that you're carrying against somebody, you can't move fast. I know of one incident that happened in the life of Tukaram Maharaj. Tukaram Maharaj was a trader, he was a Vaishya. So one time he went to sell some spices in a far away market. And when he's returning with a lot of money from that far away market, then what happens is on his way he sees one person. In his neck there is a chain of metal, and from that chain of metal is hanging a huge heavy log of wood. And Tukaram Maharaj is a kind-hearted person, so he asked this person, "Arey, what happened to you? Why is there this heavy log of wood around your neck?" And he says, "Actually, I am a criminal. Sorry to say that, but I have been punished. And my crime was not a very big crime that I should have been put into prison or I should have been killed or something. Small little crime. But for that small little crime, I have been punished in this unique way. How have I been punished? I have to carry this log of wood all the time when I move around. So imagine 30, 40 kgs of log of wood hanging around your neck. You can't walk fast, you can't run, you can't visit your relatives, because when you visit your relatives, they will ask, Are kya ho gaya? So it's shameful to tell people, and you can't hide it also. If there is some scar on your face, if there is some scar on your skin, on your hands or something, you can hide it somewhere. But a huge log of wood tied around your neck by the village panchayat, you can't hide it. So after carrying for 6 months such kind of a load around you all the time, actually you are humiliated internally, and genuine humility comes to you after that humiliation. So first is humiliation, and then there is humility, and then you understand I better not become a criminal anytime in my life. And such a person, he basically rectifies himself. So I mentioned this example. Why? Because when we carry grudges against people in our lives, this person, this friend of mine, he caused this problem to me. It is because of him that I'm suffering. And this person in my life, this person did this to me. It is because of this that I'm suffering. In this way, we can come up with 1,000 blames on 500 people. And we can keep carrying grudges against them in our heart. So I'm comparing those grudges that we carry in our heart. They may be right, they may be wrong. We are not talking about that. But finally, we are the ones who are carrying those grudges. We are like that person in Tukaram Maharaj's life who was carrying a 40 kg log of wood around his neck all the time. The problem is travel. The problem is you cannot run. The problem is you cannot do any business also, because people won't do business with somebody who has a log of wood around his neck. So who suffers when you have grudges? We. Who suffers when we don't accept the responsibility for cleaning up the mess in my life? The garbage may be thrown by anybody, but then I have to clean up. Who suffers? I suffer. It is non-hygiene in my home. It is a source of disease in my home. So my family, my life, I should never have grudges, and I should never have a blame game. I own up the responsibility for cleaning up my life, and I own the responsibility for not having grudges against anybody. All these misgivings are mentioned on the screen right now. When one's intelligence is purified by spiritual life, when one's mind is purified by spiritual life, when one's faith becomes purified by spiritual life, and when we understand nobody else is the proper shelter for me, the only real shelter for me is the Supreme Lord, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge. In the absence of knowledge, we will continue to carry so many burdens on our head. And by carrying so many burdens on our head, we won't be able to progress in our life. That is the only problem with carrying all these grudges and blames and all that. So Krishna is saying here, remember the title of today's class? The title of today's class was Utilizing Knowledge to Rise Higher. So we have to utilize all this knowledge that we are understanding in the Gita classes and actually rise higher. Chhod do baba, chhod do isko. Forgive and forget. What for? Not to benefit that person. He may or may not be benefited. The first person to benefit when you forgive and forget is you yourself. The rocket that has to fly towards Krishna in the sky, it has to let go of all chains that pull it downwards. Unless the rocket can give up all the chains that keep it tied to the ground, it can never take off into the sky. So all of us have to go and fly in the direction of the spiritual world. But if these chains of misgivings keep binding us up, we will never be able to do that. So Krishna is telling us, Gachanti. Gachanti means they go. Apunaravrittim. You won't take birth again. But when will you not take birth again? When you are fully cleansed of all the misgivings. And when will we get fully cleansed of all the misgivings? Only through complete knowledge. Why is knowledge important? Knowledge is important so that we rise higher and thus proceed straight on the path of liberation. So there is Krishna in the center, and the best devotee of Krishna, Srimati Radharani, in the center, and we have to offer our intelligence in such a way that Radha Krishna are pleased. We have to offer our mind, utilize our mind in such a way that Radha Krishna are pleased. What does it mean to offer our intelligence in such a way? It means we have to make choices. Intelligence is used to make choices. Mind is used to offer different options. The mind's responsibility is to offer different options, and the intelligence responsibility is to choose the proper option out of all those options. It means intelligence is all about making the right choices in life. If I make this choice, will it bring me closer to Krishna? If not, you may continue to chant, you may continue to pray and all that, but it may not bring you closer to Krishna. Why? Because our choices are contradicting our aspirations. Our aspirations are very pure, but if our choices are not pure, then there is a conflict. So that's why Krishna never discounts the value and the use of intelligence in spiritual life. It's not just about mind. It's not just about feel good, be good, think good, and all that. No. Spiritual life is about actually making conscious choices. What kind of food should I eat? What kind of clothes should I wear? What kind of books should I read? If I keep reading books that keep on denying the existence of God, and then once in a week for 2 hours, sorry, 1.5 hours, I hear a Gita class, it's going to wash out everything. So we have to stay away consciously from atheistic literature. And we have to come closer to literature that gives us multiple examples, that gives us multiple perspectives on how to understand in a tangible way the existence of God even in the postmodern 2020 era. Yes. So intelligence is very important tool. Intelligence chooses when the mind offers different options. So intelligence is a very important tool, and we have to understand this, that we'll have to make very conscious, thoughtful choices in our life. Mind, one of the ways the mind can be used to come closer to Radha Krishna is to always think about them. And one way to think about them is to read about them. One way to think about them is to hear about them. One way to think about them is to chant their holy names. See, if the sound around you is about Radha Krishna, then that's what the mind will continue to think about. And those are the options that the mind will present. The third option, the third point that is mentioned in the slide is faith. Tan nishthas. These are the words that Krishna used. Tan nishtha. So faith is a deep conviction. If I do this, it will bring good to me. And without this kind of conviction, we could not have arrived in life till now. When we went to our college, we had faith in the college that after 4 years of studies, 3 years of studies, 5 years of studies, they are going to give me my degree certificate. And keeping that faith, we went through all our education, and then finally we got it. So we have faith on our education, we have faith on our countrymen, we have faith on our army people, that they're genuinely trying to help us on the border of the neighboring country. And when we have proper intelligence connected to Krishna, mind connected to Krishna, faith connected to Krishna, then finally we actually see Lord Krishna as our refuge. We see Lord Krishna as the worthy person to whom we should surrender. But something that is very interesting is, for many of us, surrender is something that happens at the end of everything that is not doable. When I don't have any option left, प्रभु जी मैंने ये ट्राई किया, कुछ फायदा नहीं हुआ, मैंने वो ट्राई किया, कुछ फायदा नहीं हुआ, ये भी ट्राई किया लेकिन कुछ फायदा नहीं हुआ, अभी मैं क्या करूं? Finally I am surrendered. Just like, when there is a war and one army corners the other army, and when this army corners the other army, then the other army just raises their hand and says, okay, okay, I surrender. But if you look at Krishna's conception of surrender, let's go to the previous slide. He was mentioning Tad buddhayas tad atmanas tan nishthas, and at the end he spoke about tat parayana. Tat parayana is surrender. So here it means, after you have sufficiently used your intelligence to make the right choices in life, after you have used sufficiently your mind to think about Krishna in various ways, and after you have replenished, after you have reinforced your faith in Lord Krishna through the use of intelligence and through the use of mind, then surrender becomes a natural process. For us, in today's times, when we hear this word surrender, it's a very fearful word. प्रभु जी सरेंडर के बारे में मत बोलो. सरेंडर मतलब ऐसा लगता है कि अभी सब छोड़ छाड़ के भगवान की सेवा में लग जाना है. What about my life? What about my family? What about my independence? Let me assure you, all my friends who are attending today's class, when we surrender to Krishna, your freedom is not snatched away. Actually, your freedom is enhanced. How is it? Till now, we have surrendered to our anger. Till now, we have surrendered to our bad habits. And when we surrender to Krishna, actually, we become free of all the shackles of bad habits that we had. We become free of all the shackles of bad thoughts and bad ideals and bad haunting memories that we had in our mind for so many years. So when you take shelter of Krishna, my dear friends, you will not lose your independence. You will receive genuine independence. You will receive true independence. And that's why the surrender to Krishna is not something that happens in the beginning. Just look at Krishna, how amazing he is. In this shloka, he mentioned surrender as the fourth point. And usually in the material world, that's what we expect in the first instance. But Krishna is saying, no. First you use your intelligence. You first try to understand. Use your mind, use your faith, and then you will feel, my dear friends, that surrender to Krishna is the only viable option, is the only sensible option. अरे इतने साल इतने लोगों की सेवा की, कभी किसी ने आज तक कभी कुछ अच्छा नहीं कहा. Everyone finds faults. Now finally after doing everything, all we get to hear is, लेकिन ना आपने ये नहीं किया हमारे लिए. But you didn't do this for me. And after doing all that, when we hear these kind of harsh words, it really hurts us a lot. But I can tell you one thing, when you surrender to Krishna, Krishna does not count all the mistakes that have happened. Krishna is floored by the dedication that we had fighting through all the challenges of life, and he remembers everything. And Krishna, when we meet Krishna, Krishna says, I have so much gratitude for you. Through thick and thin, through ups and downs of your life, you managed always to remember me. So I just thought these are very important points. That surrender is mentioned as the fourth point, not the first point. And the first point that is mentioned is the intelligence. So make good choices in your life. Please make good choices in your life. We'll go ahead. This is one of the most famous shlokas of the Gita. This talks about the vision of equality, how to look at everything and everyone with an equal vision. विद्या विनय संपन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि शुनि चैव श्वपाके च पंडिताः समदर्शिनः. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and a gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, somebody who eats dogs. So this is a very wide range that Krishna is talking of. From somebody who is a learned man, a very intelligent man. And who is he? He's not just a learned man, but all that knowledge, all that learning has also caused character change in his life. So he is a gentle person also. So if you look in the shloka on the screen, it is Vidya. The first word is Vidya, and then it is Vinaya. Vinaya means humility. So this person is not only Sampanna, not only he is equipped with Vidya, but he is also Sampanna with Vinaya. इसके पास arrogance देने वाला knowledge नहीं है. इसके पास इतना सारा knowledge है कि knowledge के आधार पे उसके मन में विनय उत्पन्न हुआ है. He is a humble person. So this person, this does not talk about, this shloka does not talk about the arrogant PhDs of this world. They are PhDs, they are doctorates, they are very proud of their knowledge, and they look down upon people. And when you discuss with them anything, first they say, are you a PhD? And you say, no, I am not a PhD. Then they say, there's no point in discussing with you. You won't even understand what I'm speaking. I have talked to PhDs who have this kind of arrogance. It says PhDs should not have arrogance. PhDs should say, I have gone so deep into this knowledge. Let me give you a very simple understanding of what I did research in. Higher is your understanding of the subject matter, greater is your ability to explain it in very simple terms to the most simplest people. But if we are finding difficulty in explaining subject matter to the most simple people, then it means we ourselves don't have proper understanding of that subject matter. We have limited understanding, and that's why we can explain it to limited people. So this is not talking about the proud people who are very much thinking that they're superior to the rest of the people just based on this knowledge. This is Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Okay. So Vidya Vinaya Sampanna Brahman. And then Gavi means cow, and Hastini means elephant, and Shuni means a dog, and Shwapake means dog eater. So sometimes, in the modern world, we speak about such and such thing covers the A to Z of our needs. It means it covers A, it covers Z, and it also covers something in between, all the letters of the alphabet. So Brahman, who is having Vidya and who is also having Vinay, this person is at the highest level of society. He has knowledge, but he's not proud of that knowledge. I'll tell you one story from Chanakya Pandit's life. Chanakya is such a very intelligent person. He brought back glory to India. At one point of time, one scholar wanted to meet Chanakya, and then he was searching for Chanakya's home in the capital city. And then somebody told him Chanakya, although he is the royal advisor to the king Chandragupta Maurya, but he does not stay in some palace in the city. He stays in a small hut outside the city. And this was the first thing that affected our scholar. And the scholar goes out outside the city limits, and there he finds a small little hut. And to enter that hut, it's not a very big size hut. The door is very short, and he goes in after bending down, and then he asks later that why is this door so small. Then he says, because when you're talking to somebody and when you're receiving knowledge from somebody, then it is better to always have a humble attitude. So in this way, there is so much emphasis on humility, genuine humility in the Vedic culture, that unless we have that humility in our heart, knowledge won't flow. Just like water flows in the downward direction, knowledge also flows from a higher level to a lower level. So from the highest level of a Vidya Vinaya Sampanna Brahman to somebody who is a dog eater and outcast and everything in between, it is mentioned Panditaha Sama Darshinaha. This person sees all of these different varieties equally with equal vision. And it's very interesting that we are discussing this shloka in 2020. Why? Because in today's times, although we are talking about a lot of social equality, the rich and the poor, the uneducated and the educated, and this and that, there should be equality. But do you really find social equality today? Even in today's times, for this COVID treatment, I heard that some injections that are necessary for COVID treatment in some cases, they are being sold in black market. So some injection, which is usual cost is something like 30,000 rupees. It's a very a situation when it becomes really complicated. So in Pune, I heard this injection is being sold. These injections have suddenly vanished from all the medical stores. No medical store has these injections now, and they are being marketed at 1.75 L, just to make some business out of it. So where is the social equality that in times of crisis, when society is facing crisis, is this the time to make black money out of black marketing? When it is a peaceful time, when there is no emergency in the society, and that time you do all this black marketing and all, it is understood, but not at a time when the whole nation is suffering. Imagine making money out of somebody's death. So when I heard this, I really felt so pity. I felt so pitiful that today's society, although it talks about a lot of equality and talks about helping nature and all that, it's basically a farce. And then what about racial equality? That certain races in this world, the fair-skinned ones, they think that they're superior. And some races, just like at one point of time, one particular Führer means, the leader in German language is called Führer. So he was thinking, his race is a superior race, and he exterminated 12 million Jews at one point of time. What for? What was their cause? They were not criminals. He felt my race is superior to the Jew race, and the Jews don't deserve to live. So there is racial inequality. What about gender equality? Many times I have seen advertisements for hiring people in the newspapers. They say, we are equal opportunity providers for both genders. Why do we have to write it? It means they actually have to specify it, which means that many companies in this world are not actually having the gender equality at their workplace. There is discrimination, there is exploitation, and there is unnecessary trouble that is given to certain classes of society, certain sections of society, based on their gender, based on their race, based on all different parameters that foolish people can think of. So in this way, there is exploitation in so many forms in today's society. So one interesting thing is, when the United Nations was formed originally, after the Second World War. Somewhere around 1954, 1955, Second World War ended around 1949, roughly around that time. And then after some years after that, there was a League of Nations. And after the League of Nations, they came up with this United Nations. So this United Nations, when it was formed, had something like 40 or 45 members. These were the countries that were there. Somewhere around 1966, 1967, around that time, the number of nations had gone up beyond 100. Something like that. I think 72 in the beginning, and then it crossed 100. Does anybody know what is the number of nations today and how many members of United Nations are there today? Just a rough idea. Anybody has any idea?
Prabhuji, is it 180 or so?
Something like that, yes. 177, 180, roughly like that. Now, one interesting observation is the Earth has not changed. The planet has not changed. So the same planet initially had something like 70 countries, then it became 120 countries, and now you have so many countries. Even within our nation, Madhya Pradesh is now split into two states, Chhattisgarh and this, and Bihar has been split into two states, and Andhra Pradesh has been split into two states. So it's very interesting that we keep talking about equality and unity, and meanwhile, the practical, genuine statistics reveal that the country is breaking up and the world is breaking up. More nations are being created on the same land, more states are being created in the same country. So where is all this equality gone? And what is all this talk of equality? So at one point of time, countries like Russia and France, they were ruled by monarchs, and they were really oppressive monarchs. They were really unconcerned with the masses. And then what happened? There was a socialist revolution. There was a communist revolution. What they did was all the common masses came together, dragged down the kings, and just executed them. So the king in Russia was called Tsar. Tsar Nicholas II was executed. That was the last member of that family, Nicholas II. And in France, it was King Louis the 16th. King Louis the 16th was executed. And that was the French Revolution, and that was the Russian Revolution. And after the French and the Russian Revolution, there are no more kings there. And why did this happen? Because these kings were totally disconnected from reality. And then the peasants came together and they felt, now we are going to set equal standards for everyone. And then came the communist revolution. So communism is based on this idea that not just one person should rule over everyone. Everyone should form a joint government, and then together they should rule. This is called communism. Now today in China, China is the last bastion, as they say, is the last country which is a huge country and still has communism. Now I'll tell you something about China. Whatever was being done by the monarchs at one point of time, worse than that in terms of quantity and in terms of cruelty is being done in China. In China, there is no religious freedom. There are millions and lakhs of Muslims who have been imprisoned in jails in China. Nobody talks about it. And the only fault of them is they believe in God, they believe in the scriptures, and the Chinese government is saying, we are communists, we are atheists, you cannot profess faith in any God. There is no God. This is the one of the fundamental foundational principles of communism. And just because you want to worship God, you are put into jail. In China, when you are using the internet, there is no access to Google. You can't type www.google.com. You can't type www.youtube.com. So many websites are just not allowed within China. You know why? Because it allows free access to information, and the state, as they call it, wants to control the right to having access to information. We will control what you read. We will control what you watch. We will control what you see. How is this different from the ruling and from the oppressive rules of the monarchs? There was a king and there was a queen, and they used to make rules and nobody could challenge those rules. And to overthrow this whole system, they came up with communism. And in communism today, it is much more cruel. It is much more aggressive. If you read about Sino-Japan war, there was a war between China and Japan. the kind of cruelty that happened to the prisoners of war, when you get some soldiers of the other side, the worst cruelties have happened in the Japanese-Chinese war done by the Chinese people. So at one point of time, they thought that they will overcome all the cruelty and they'll overcome this kind of a harsh treatment of the masses by bringing communism. Sorry to tell you, but communist Russia at one point of time was broken, 1991, and communist China even today is the worst examples of cruelty to their own citizens. We are not talking about others, to their own citizens. So what is the solution to all this? Are we here to just discuss problems about racial equality, social inequality, and gender inequality? No, we are here to discuss the Gita, and we are here to discuss the solution. So I have come across these cartoons here. It's a sketch, it's not exactly a cartoon, but let's just go through it. There are these three kids who want to watch a match. And this is the reality of the world, that somebody has a lot of privileges. Somebody has a few privileges and somebody is underprivileged. Nothing in his life. This is the reality. And then when you talk of equality, it is that, अरे सबका भला करो, सबको अच्छाई दो. So then what they did is, they gave 3 benches to these 3 kids. But is it helping? Is it helping the third person? He was underprivileged. In one sense, from practical perspective, even now he is underprivileged because he still can't see the match. Yes, you can say, I gave him a facility to stand on the table, but even now he can't see the match. So how has the situation changed? The situation has not changed much. Then we'll go to the third cartoon. This is called One Step Beyond Equality. This is where you don't give equal facilities, you give unequal facilities because you know that the situation is unequal. And by giving unequal facilities / privileges to unequal people, you bring them at least at a level playing field. At least now all 3 can watch the match and all 3 can express themselves. And then we don't stop here. I'll show you something that will blow your mind off. This is called liberation. Liberation means there are no more boundaries, and the third person no longer requires 2 tables to stand on, and the second person does not require any table, because now there are no bondages. Now there is nothing that is stopping you from experiencing life. So the fourth picture is basically spiritual life. The third picture is attempts in your own way to do something, and the second picture was just the talk. Just keep talking about equality and don't do anything about equality. And reality is basically, all this communist regime and all, who said that we don't want kings because we want to give equal power to people. But even today, the ruling class in communist China controls each and every small decision that is taken in the country. The army is controlled by the Communist Party. The media is controlled by the Communist Party. Every single decision, the newspapers are controlled by the Communist Party. You can't speak a single line against the ruling Communist Party lest you be executed. You'll be just killed. You will vanish without a sight. So this is the reality. There is the concept of equality, but this concept of equality is what is happening in the world today. Arey sab kuch sabko sab kuch de do. You make an elephant sit in the library. Now the elephant is an active animal. The elephant has a lot of energy. Don't make the elephant sit in the library. And then because equality, na sabse sab kuch karwana hai. Some intelligent man, actually he can sit in the library and do very good research. And if he's taught some good principles in life, then he will never exploit people. Such a person you put in the factory. Well, nahi, everyone must do everything because we are here for equality. We don't want to discriminate. You don't want to discriminate. But the way the world is, there is so much discrimination. Some people are born intelligent. And some people are born not intelligent, but they have a lot of power in their arms. So those who have power in their arms, if you make them forcibly sit in a library, they get frustrated in life. And somebody who's very intelligent, but you put him to work in the garden, digging soil and all that, he gets frustrated. So intelligent people should be organized in such a way that they do all the research work. Those who are attracted to working hard, they should be given that opportunity. So what happens is, in this way, you don't give equality to people. And in the name of equality, you physically change the situation from reality to equality, but in effect, in actuality, you didn't change much result. So this is a little bit that comes close to, giving varnashram facilities. Varnashram is identifying people as per their capabilities and as per their nature, and then facilitating them, giving them opportunities in such a way that their natural talents prosper. In today's education, the education system that is there today, the schooling system that is there today, it puts everyone in the same box. The artists have to study science, and when they study science, they fail in science subjects. And when they fail in science subjects, their parents feel there is something seriously wrong with my child, because शेजारच्यांच्या कुलकर्ण्यांचा मुलगा तर नेहमी पहिला येतो विज्ञानामध्ये. In science, the neighbor's son always stands first. Oh, he's a different person. Your child can be the best artist. Your child can be the best painter. Your child can be the best singer. Your child can be the best software programmer or something. But why does he have to be best in everything? But this is something which takes a lot of time for parents to understand. And unfortunately, whether you are an artist, whether you are an army soldier, in the making, in your childhood days, you can be an artist, you can be a sailor, you can be an engineer, you can be a architect, you can be a dancer, singer, cook, chef, and anything. But every single person has to undergo the same education. You know what? This is such a big flaw. This is such a big flaw. There is no testing. There is no evaluation of that child's qualities, of that child's inclinations in childhood, and then training the child as per the nature. So the national education policy, which was recently revised, is going in that direction a little bit, that not all subjects are compulsory for everyone. In fact, they have encouraged cross branches education. Like if somebody is an engineer and he has some interest in economics, then he can take some minor subjects as economics as he's studying engineering. And somebody who's studying commerce but is interested in computer science, then while studying commerce, they can take an elective subject of computer science. And so in this way, what happens is there is genuine growing, there is a genuine flourishing of knowledge. See, I am an economics person, but I also like computers. So because I like computers, they are giving me a chance that I can take computer science also as a subject. And in this way, I choose what I study. And when I choose what I study, it becomes so interesting. It becomes so attractive. Then the parents don't have to sit on the child's head. अरे अभ्यास कर काय होणार तुझं डोक्यावर बसलायस माझ्या आणि तुला खाऊ कोण घालणार आणि तुझं मोठं होऊन काय होणार. And hearing this, the children get so frustrated. Children get so, they've on one side, there is that internal struggle to study something which is looking like just some information, some figures and some letters. Another side, there are these teachers who keep oppressing them with regular tests. And then when they come to their homes, the most loving mother and the most loving father suddenly are telling them, if you don't study, how will we show our face to society and all that. And I'm telling you, it causes so much internal conflicts in children's minds. And the problem is not theirs, the problem is not yours. The problem is with the leaders of society who never want to touch the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has mentioned, you cannot change your nature unless there is going to be a miracle. If you look at the monkeys in Ramayana, they are great devotees of the Supreme Lord and they did so many things for the Supreme Lord. And when they found out Mother Sita, then all of the Vanaras, they returned to Kishkinda. So when Lord Ramchandra is going by plane from Ravan's kingdom to Ayodhya, for some time they stop over Kishkinda, because the monkey soldiers who fought with Lord Ramchandra, they wanted to visit their families after the war was won. And they come there, and there is a very beautiful garden in Kishkinda near Hampi, where some of you came for the yatra might remember. It's called Madhuban. And it was guarded by one of their monkey friends. And when all these monkeys, they returned from the war of Ramayana, they actually plundered that whole garden. They actually plundered that whole garden, and the leader of that, the caretaker of that garden was saying, "Arey, aisa kyun kar rahe hain? Abhi, I will be chastised and I will be asked thousands of questions. Why did you allow this monkey?" They say, "Hey, come on, it's a happy time. It's a happy time. Lord Ramchandra has won. Mother Sita is back and we want to enjoy." They plundered the whole garden with all the honeycombs and all the fruits, and it was a big mess. But the point that I'm making is, because they are monkeys, they will behave like monkeys. Yes, they are monkeys. They will behave like monkeys, but they're special monkeys. They will serve Lord Ramchandra. They will never ever cause any problem to Lord Ramchandra. But finally, they are monkeys, so they will have a big party in the form of honey and all the fruits. So that's very interesting. Krishna in the Gita, he says that Prakriti is Swabhava cannot be changed, and that's why in the Vedic conception, education does not happen that everyone has to undergo studying the same subjects, irrespective of who you are. It is that very specifically your nature is detected, and then you are given education. And I guess because of the present government's inclination towards Vedic culture, थोड़ा they are attracted to the Gita, they are attracted to Lord Krishna. When the Honorable Prime Minister went to Ladakh at the Indo-China border, then he spoke there. Oh, the neighboring country knows that we worship Krishna and they feel that Krishna is the one who plays the flute. But we want to tell the neighboring country, our God Krishna does not just play the flute, but many times he has also showed his Sudarshan Chakra. This was the message that the Honorable Prime Minister of India gave to the neighboring country. And after that situation, he has also handled the situation in such a way that don't just feel we know how to play the flute. So here is one person who actually believes in Krishna, who's quoting Krishna. He has so much faith in the Gita. And that's why, based on these Vedic principles, now the education policy is being changed. And if we have the right education, not only in our childhood, but also when we understand spiritual subject matter through the Gita, then there is liberation that is waiting for us. In that liberation, you don't need any facilities. You don't need any tables to stand on top. There are no hurdles between you and your success, you and your happiness. So Lord Krishna's conception of equality is that you can see a dog in the picture. In the heart of the dog is the super soul. And there is a person who's taking care of the dog. In his heart also is the super soul, Paramatma. And there is an elephant. And in the heart of the elephant also there is Paramatma. And then there is a sage, a wise man sitting at the base of the tree. And he also has Paramatma in the heart. And then there are cows coming. And the cows also have Paramatma in the heart. And then there is that Vaishnav with a bead bag in his hand who's standing at the end. And he is looking at the cow, the dog eater, the elephant, and the wise Brahman with equal vision. Why is he seeing them with equal vision? He's seeing them with equal vision because all of them have the Supreme Lord in their heart, and all of them are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. ये सब भगवान के बेटे हैं, ये सब भगवान के अंश हैं. अगर सब भगवान के अंश हैं तो सारे equal है. But what is that equality? That equality is not based on the external body. Black skin color is very different from brown skin color, which is very different from fair skin color. Externally, there are a lot of differences, but Krishna is pointing to the essence of everything. The essence is that all these personalities, their skin color may be different, but finally, the spirit soul who is inside is the same and similar, and that's why all of them have a connection with Krishna. So Krishna's conception of equality expressed in 3 points. First, equality is possible on the basis of essential quality. I have broken the word equality into 2 words. Equality is essential quality. We are all the children of the Supreme Lord, so equal to everyone else. We are equal to everyone else at the essence level. Second, but till the point we accept this fundamental understanding. How many of us have accepted this fundamental understanding that yes, all of us are children of God? And not many people have accepted this in the outside world. So till the point we accept this fundamental understanding, we cannot artificially achieve equality. And every attempt to do that artificially will lead to greater problems and also will complicate the situation further. So the communists, we explained, the communists wanted equality, did not happen. The socialists wanted equality, did not happen. The Russian Revolution wanted equality, did not happen. The French Revolution wanted equality, did not happen. Whatever they have done till now has not resulted in equality. They just keep creating greater and greater problems. But to deal with this temporary reality where somebody is born intelligent, somebody is born not so intelligent, somebody is born with a lot of physical energy, somebody is born with artistic energy, and so on, we need to understand how to organize ourselves as per our proclivities and natures. And this is Krishna's conception of equality, that don't just give equal facilities to people, give equal attention to people. अटेंशन सबके लिए है, लेकिन क्वालिटीज अलग अलग है, तो फैसिलिटीज भी अलग अलग देनी पड़ेंगी. Just for an example, here we saw equality, which is the modern conception of equality, but it does not solve the problem. And then we discussed about how three people who are unequal have to be given different facilities, and then that produces equality. And finally, spiritual life was this liberation where there are no impediments, there are no obstructions. So this is Krishna's conception of equality. And till the time we don't accept this Krishna's conception of equality, equality will remain a dream. Equality will remain a concept that everybody wants but nobody gets. Whereas if you see in the Vedic times, the intelligent people were given that type of training. The strong people were given that type of training. Those who were interested in commerce were given that type of training, and then there was balance. Not that they just become arrogant based on their money. They were also told to take care of cows. They were also told to take care of so many animals. So the cows were a responsibility of the businessmen. The businessmen earn a lot of money. So to counterbalance that, they were told to take care of the cows. In this way, responsibility was shared. Facilities were given unequally because people are born unequally. But in giving facilities unequally, there was equal attention. There was equal consideration. There was equal sensitivity. इसको क्या अच्छा लगेगा वो उसको देना चाहिए. इसके लिए क्या अच्छा है वो उसको देना पड़ेगा. In this way. So we'll stop here. If somebody has any questions, we can take a few questions. But before questions, I just ask you if you remember any points from today's class, then you can quickly speak about 1 or 2 points that you liked or you want to speak on. Also, there's a meditation on the screen. If somebody wants to speak on this, then you can unmute yourself and speak. Any thoughts on our conception of equality vis-a-vis Krishna's conception of equality? Thank you very much. You can unmute and speak.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, this is regarding that, that image where you wrote about Radha Krishna and, the intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge, that image.
Yeah.
So when it said the first point is intelligence, you make proper choices or responsible choices.
Yeah.
But the way I was reading it, I read it as if mind was the first thing, because unless mind offers the options, everything to offer, why would my intelligence not make choices from there? So I was reading it as if mind was number one and intelligence is number two. And then once I make the choices, I need to have faith in those choices. I need to believe that I've made the right choices. Okay. And then number four, once I've made all my decisions and choices, I just surrender to God and let Him take care of the rest. So am I thinking the right way? That mind is the first one and then intelligence?
Okay, let's do it the way Krishna has presented. If you look at the words, tad buddhayas. So it is Krishna's words that first you take care of the buddhi, tad atmanas, you take care of the mind, and then nishthas, faith, and then tat parayana. So we described what Krishna has spoken. Now coming back to the explanation of what I spoke. See, think about it. Right now, if I am not a spiritually advanced person, I am somebody who comes to the Gita classes for the first time. Yes.
Yeah.
What are the different options that my mind is offering to me? My mind is not offering me any single option. Out of the 100 options that it is offering me, not one option is connected to Krishna. Why? Because I have never read any books. I have never, come across any devotee and so on. So my mind may be offering me 100 choices right now, but none of those choices are worthy to be chosen. Yes, but when I sit for the class, then certain things are told to me which appeal to me.
Yeah.
Actually, not that everything was nonsense. Well, one or two points that the speaker made in that Gita class were very nice. I don't agree with all the 10 points that he spoke, but yes, one or two points were nice. So somewhere something sticks, and that's where the intelligence becomes activated. And then next time, even if the mind offers you another 100 choices that have nothing to do with Krishna, instead of jumping over to select one of those 100 choices, the intelligence says, excuse me, but not even one choice, one option out of these 100 options is connected to Krishna. I think we should have one or two options related to Krishna also, and you may have 98 or 99 not related to Krishna. So that's the first time when intelligence started speaking. And then the mind, it understands, oh, he's talking a different language nowadays. Now intelligence wants some options out of the 100 options to have some connection with Krishna. So it is the intelligence that causes a change in the way of thinking. It is the intelligence that causes a change in the style, in the way we look at the world, the perspective that we have at the world. But without intelligence guiding the mind to think in a different way, to perceive things in a different way, the mind will continue its old habits of thinking in a very selfish, in a very limited way, like the way it has done for the last 25, 30, 35 years. Last 30, 35 years, we always thought for everything from our perspective. That's what the mind has been trained. And the mind wants to continue that, but the intelligence says, excuse me, I think one or two options, as per that Gita class that I heard last time, I'm not going to select any one of these 98 options. Unless you put some option connected to Krishna, I'm not going to choose. And that's when the mind changes post the change of intelligence. And then just because the intelligence changed, the mind had to come up with some options related to Krishna. Like, if you're somebody is a very music fan, then till the time we came to a Gita class, we never heard about any bhajan connected to Krishna. But then, once in a while, it's not that you just by coming to the Gita class, you suddenly change your music library. Not that. But out of the 100 CDs that you had, probably you went to some shop recently and purchased some Gita Bhajan CD. So now previously you had 98 or 99 CDs connected to some films or something. Now there are one or two CDs that are connected to Krishna. So first the intelligence, then the mind. And then slowly, because of the working of the intelligence and the mind, you get a good experience. Next time when you are in pain, next time when you are in difficulty, you actually put that Krishna bhajan, and it gives you so much solace to the mind, it gives you so much relief from all that stress. And then you get faith. अरे वो जो क्लास में बोला था, it was not just lip talk, but actually it had substance, because that person told me, if you chant Krishna's name or if you remember Krishna, you pray to Krishna sincerely, actually it helps you in your heart. And that is what I did today, and actually it worked for me. So faith does not come just by listening to what people are saying. Faith comes when your experience matches what you heard. So if you have used your intelligence and you trained your mind to work as per your intelligence, and then you made certain choices in your life, and then you actually went through the experience, then whatever you heard and whatever you saw makes complete agreement with what you experienced in your life. And that is when your faith gets reinforced. बोलते हैं अरे प्रभु जी अभी तो विश्वास हो गया. आपका क्लास जब तक अटेंड कर रहे थे तो बहुत कुछ सुना था, लेकिन जब उसके तरफ उसके अनुसार जीवन जीना शुरू किया तब मुझे अभी निष्ठा आ गई है. now I am convinced that this is the right way, and that is when the faith factor comes in. So we are not people, Vaishnavas are not people who hammer faith on the heads of our participants of the Gita class. Vaishnavas are those people who present to you knowledge, who request you to practice that knowledge, and allow you to gain faith in Krishna's message based on your own experience. So faith is not something that will come from me. From me, some solutions will come, some answers will come. From me, some suggestions will come. But when you actually live by those suggestions, when you actually make those kind of choices in your life, and when you get a true, genuine experience, yes, it helped, Prabhuji, it helped, then faith is your property. Then faith is your earning. And then when you have faith, then you feel, well, the right choices, the right thoughts, the right meditations, and the right conviction, which is another word for faith. I think surrender to Krishna, taking refuge of Krishna, is the only worthy option that I have now in my life. This is how I look at this slide.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, something about this slide that I put. What is your meditation understanding Krishna's conception of equality? Something from anybody? Our conception of equality and Krishna's conception of equality. Okay, no problem. Anybody wants to speak any point that they liked, appreciated, made sense during today's class? Yes. Your volume is extremely low, Mataji. Your volume is extremely low. My volume is full.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better, Mataji.
No, something wrong. No, there's something wrong with my ear.
No, we are able to hear you now.
Let somebody else speak.
Okay. Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
17. That point very much I
Right.
like to rise in spiritual and every day everybody should forget and forgive. Then go ahead. I like this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So you're talking of, this thing, fully cleansed of the misgivings. Here you have this word called misgivings. Fully cleansed of the misgivings. Yes. Anybody else would like to speak?
You talked about atheists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere I feel that atheists actually keep they argue and talk about things, but at the same time they contradict their own statements most of the time. That's I feel. Like for instance, when I say when an atheist say, "Oh, there's no Krishna," just for some moments, if we instead of Krishna, let's put a pencil there, okay? And when you say there's no pencil there, actually I am acknowledging that pencil.
By saying that it does not exist.
Yes. So I feel that they contradict themselves, and most of the time they try to argue just to show the world that they're a little different than what the world is.
Yeah, they have Vidya, but they don't have any Vinay.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't have the Marathi words. I was trying to.
No, this is there in the words on the screen. Yes, there is Vidya, but they don't have any Vinay.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. So should we stop here and meet next Thursday?
That's tomorrow.
Oh, today's Thursday. Okay, let's meet next Thursday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Jai
Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.